Following North Korea's intercontinental ballistic missile test this week, President Trump stated that he'd confront a threat from the country very strongly. Meanwhile, U.S. Senator Cory Gardner took to Twitter to address the launch, announcing his intent to introduce legislation that would cut financial ties to countries that continue to do business with North Korea. John, seemingly, I mean, it was a Twitter post, we don't see actual legislation, but seemingly that would include the country of China, which last time I checked, did an awful lot of business with the United States.
Something like 40%.
Something like that. So I don't know how realistic, I realize we shouldn't take it as a legislative agenda from a Twitter post, but what did you make of Gardner's
in these days and times, I think we have to, though, because now you have congressmen and you have mayors, you have governors saying, let's get rid of print media altogether. We don't need it. And so this is going to be a very tricky situation. As a couple of days ago, Trump came out and said, well, we wanted China to help us with this North Korean situation, but they're not going to help us. We're not going to help because of the trade thing that you just talked about. And so bottom line on that, we're in a dangerous position right now, because if we don't want China to help us with North Korea, who will? Who can?
Patty, foreign policy comments about North Korea on Twitter. Does this impact Gardner's political future in Colorado?
Well, let's face it, he's already been attacked by the North Korean dictator for his hair, which was one of the things that made Cory Gardner very interesting, that, you know, North Korea is obsessed with his hairline. The fact that he actually is out in front about this, having people talk about it, I think is good. You know, Colorado doesn't have a huge Korean connection, although we've got some excellent restaurants in Aurora. But now, as you're watching Trump in Europe with the G20 and shaking or not shaking Putin's hand, you really wonder if that group might actually be able to have some sensible conversation about what to do with this growing threat.
Michael, does Cory Gardner's comments on foreign policy help bolster him as a Republican U.S. Senator?
Well, I think it's a big part of your job as a U.S. Senator is to deal with foreign policy issues. So I don't think it's surprising that he decided to come out with a statement. And as you mentioned, that statement was very hard on China. What that actually turns into, we'll see. But I think, you know, when President Obama left the office, he told President Trump that the most urgent issue was North Korea. And I think that would be surprising to most Americans, given the fact that, you know, we're dealing with ISIS and other things in the Middle East. But once they figure out that, you know, these missiles can have a range that could hit Alaska, for example, I think it becomes more serious. So I don't see President Trump and the Senate really sitting around passively. They've got to figure out what that next plan will be, though.
Nick, North Korea is not only physically far away, but I think it's far away in a lot of Coloradans' minds. We just don't necessarily think about that. Things like immigration, other major federal issues are top of mind to Coloradans, but probably not North Korea. So when we see a U.S. Senator from Colorado talk about North Korea, how do you feel the average Coloradans think about that and what their reaction is?
I mean, I think that it gives the average Coloradan pause. I mean, this is a growing, mounting threat. The fact that our senator's talking about it, it's on his mind when there are so many other issues to be dealt with domestically. I think it does give a Coloradan pause. The interesting thing is that we have a president who, in the White House right now, who is very isolationist. And it'll be interesting to see how he, with his isolationist policies and stance in the world, takes on these major international threats. And how that all shakes out, I think, will be fascinating to see over the next 4 years.